everybody, and welcome to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports here on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network, and it is so good to be with you on this Thursday morning. I don't know where you may be listening to this on this Thursday, but where I am in the great state of North Carolina, it's a bitterly cold Thursday morning on this January 23rd. But good morning, and it was great hearing Lenny from Long Island, the legend, as he kicked off our day. And want to talk about these players that have either signed or yet may be traded. You know, it's been a really quiet trade market, hasn't it? And free agents signed quickly, and one signed on earlier this week. I want to talk about Ozuna and the impact he'll have in that Atlanta lineup. But the big thing is there haven't been many trades. And we'll talk about one that was talked about earlier. Maybe it'll finally quiet down. But Ozuna and the fantasy impact he has now in that lineup with Atlanta, not only for himself, but those around him. Ozuna signed to a 1-year, $18 million contract this week. I believe this happened after my show on Tuesday. So this is my first real chance to talk about Ozuna and that fantasy impact. Ozuna's going to be a great bat in that lineup, all right? So for several reasons. You're going to have Acuna leading off, and arguably Ronald Acuna Jr. will be either the top or one of the top players in the draft, in every draft. And you're going to have an Ozzie Albies. You're going to have a Freeman. And now you add Ozuna to that lineup, which, first of all, lengthens the batting order with yet another quality bat. Takes a lot of pressure off that third base situation. And I'm not quite sure Atlanta is done with that yet. But if we have a substitution pattern where we have Camargo there and Austin Riley there, they've added that veteran bat. My only question with Ozuna, guys, is his health. He's had a shoulder impingement issue. Maybe that's behind him now. He comes into that lineup, probably going to hit cleanup. I would put him right behind Freddie Freeman. I think he gives Freeman more protection. You're going to then slot. You've got other bats in that lineup. You've got Swanson will come after him. Dansby Swanson had a great breakout year last year. What do you project for Ozuna in Atlanta? Is he a 40 home run guy? Certainly he could be. 100 RBI guy? Certainly he should be. So I like this bat. They've got him to replace, if you will, Donaldson in the order. Ozuna hit 263, 52 homers over the past 2 seasons. He's only 29. Remember, 2 seasons removed from having 37 homers in 2017 and a 924 OPS that same year. I don't think it was bad luck. I don't think it was so much an off season. I think Ozuna was injured most of last year. Ozuna will serve as the Braves' everyday left fielder, Acuna playing center field, and now we got to figure out how they're going to utilize Markakis and Duvall. Remember, Adam Duvall had a really great comeback season last year, but now his time is limited. Do you have sort of a rotation left-right with those two? Good problem to have, right? So Donaldson goes to the Twins. The Braves need to replace that bat. They're not waiting on Chris Bryant. They're not waiting on Nolan Arenado. I don't remember there being much interest in Bryant anyway. And now there's doubts about Arenado being traded. We'll get into that in just a moment. So the Braves shift their focus to Ozuna. Camargo will now likely begin the season as the third baseman. Riley could fill that role. So for fantasy, Camargo's value just goes up. Ozuna's value reestablished. The Cardinals will receive, and this is baseball talk, a compensation pick and the Braves will forfeit their third highest selection and $500,000 of international money. I wrote my numbers down wrong. I apologize. So now Ozuna has the same situation Donaldson had last year to come in, hopefully have a stellar 2020, and then re-enter the free agent market next year and be looking for more of a long-term contract. That's where this is going for Ozuna. Fantasy-wise, I think Albies, Acuna, Freeman, Camargo, their values just went up slightly. I don't know that Acuna's could have gone up. He's probably number one in the draft. But you see what I'm saying? He certainly doesn't lessen his potential to put up great numbers when you add a bat like Marcell Ozuna to that lineup. Great add, I think, by the Braves. I think it puts them in a strong position to contend in the National League East for that division title. I think it makes them a stronger playoff club as well. And if they now look to add, I don't know if it's still there or not. We'll talk about it in just a moment. If they did somehow get in on the Nolan Arenado trade, if that is still in fact alive, can you imagine that team with that bat added to what they now have? Now, speaking of Arenado, maybe the talk out of Denver will slow down. Arenado came out on Wednesday and said that his quotes earlier in the week were, quote, out of character, and that he would not speak on his situation with the Rockies anymore. Denver Post. Go online and read it. There's a report there by Patrick Saunders which said, I'm going to read it to you, there's been a lot of stuff going on that no one knows about. I was reacting to what was said and was out of character for me because I'm very private with my life. The Rockies have been talking to my agent and me this offseason about a number of things that will remain between us. I will not speak on these things anymore. I'm getting ready for the 2020 season. So, that's Nolan Arenado. The Rockies, reports were, they were listening to trades. Monday, Jeff Briddick told the Denver Post there would be no trade. Arenado came back talking about disrespect. He's 28 years old, second year of an 8-year, $260 million contract. You know, the Rockies go through the postseason in 17 and 18, but then last year finished 20 games under 500, the first year of that long deal. It's a complete no trade for an Arenado. He can opt out and become a free agent after next year, and guess what? I'm betting he does. So, for now, that should end the talk about Nolan Arenado. What I think it does fantasy is if there were any doubts or questions how he would play somewhere else, forget about it. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere else. The Braves signed Ozuna. They're not interested probably in waiting around because it ain't going to happen. Arenado's going to be a Rocky. I think he's still a first-round pick, chat room. And that's where I think this is going. I really think Arenado will remain in Colorado, put up great numbers, and be a fantasy stud once again this year.
I want to say good morning, Andrea, who sends me the smiley face. Good morning. Chat room loaded this morning. Clarona, Chris, Dale, Doug Boyle, Lenny from Long Island, Methical, Ray, Royals 29, Boom as always, Kevin Hastings, Taco, Timothy Hooker. We got some guests. You know, it'd be great if you guys again would register. We'd love to see your names and include you. And what I think is just the greatest podcast network. We got so many different personalities, different perspectives. Hey, and I agree with most of them. There you go. So, good morning, everybody. It's great to see you. And Ozuna certainly going to be fantasy factor-ish as we go into 2020.
So this morning I want to start my preview of who to draft, where they rank in 2020. Okay, this is good stuff, and I'm going to throw in some stats and try to justify my picks. Yeah, everybody's got their rankings, so here go mine. We're going to start this morning with outfielders, okay, outfielders. And I'm one of these guys that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I've got to say, in my opinion, still, the number one outfielder in fantasy baseball is Mike Trout. And he comes in number 1 on my outfield list. Last year, a .291 average. He scored 110 runs. He had 45 home runs. He had 104 RBIs, 11 stolen bases. Now, I know the stolen bases are down, but he's 28 years old. No signs of slowing down. I look at his splits last year, okay? Against lefties, 273. Against righties, 303. So he had a better split against right-handers. He hit 35 of his 45 home runs against right-handers. His OPS is 1.001 against lefties, 1.124 against righties. His home and away splits, he's 284 at home, 298 batting average away. Mike Trout, to me, it's close, but he's my number 1 outfielder as we go into 2020 drafts. And, of course, number 2 on my list is Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, Acuna just keeps getting better because he's so young, right? I mean, he's 22 years old. Last year, he scored 127 runs. He had 41 home runs. He had 101 RBIs and 37 stolen bases. Wow. 10 homers against lefties, 31 against righties. Similar to Trout, his batting average higher against right-handers than his left-handers. Home and away splits almost the same. His OPS 901 against lefties, 882 against righties. Acuna, my number 2 outfielder. Now it gets tricky. Where do you go with number 3? And in my analysis, I was looking at several players. I'm going to take a little reach here, and I like this play. Okay, Christian Yelich, he's not my number 3. He's not my number 3. He's coming off some injuries. I'm a little shaky on that one. And for the first-round draft pick, I want a player I know is going to be on the field. So here's what I'm doing. My number 3 outfielder also plays first base, and it's Cody Bellinger. Now, last year we know that Bellinger was such a beast at the early part of the season. He cooled off. He finished the year with a .305 average. He scored 121 runs. He had 47 home runs. He had 115 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. He's 24 years old. His splits, well, against righties, he hit 317, just over 280 against lefties, but that's a great improvement. He had a 982 OPS against left-handed pitching, 1.061 against right-handers. Bellinger, he's my number 3 outfielder coming into drafts this year. And number 4, okay, everybody at this point to me has some question marks. And so it's a matter of which question marks do you consider the lesser of evils, right? Here's a stretch. I know, chat room, you're going to be talking about this one because I'm going to take Aaron Judge as my 4th outfielder in 2020 drafts. I think Judge at 27 is going to rebound from an injury-marred 2019, which saw him only hit 27 home runs. But Judge still has, look, his splits last year. Okay, I know he's more powerful against left-handers. I get that. He had a 1.124 OPS against left-handed pitching, only 847 OPS against right-handers. But his home and away splits, look at this. Home at Yankee Stadium, his OPS 923, away 919. So he's as good away from Yankee Stadium as he is OPS-wise at home. I think he plays a full season, and I think with a full season, Aaron Judge can put up some massive numbers. I'm going to predict more than 45 home runs this year, and in fantasy, give me that. Give me Aaron Judge as my number 4 outfielder. And so here comes Christian Yelich at number 5. The only thing that concerns me about Yelich, it's not the ability, it's the